Hey there, and welcome to the Transparently Jordan podcast, where I'll be talking with a new guest each week, and we'll be covering topics in health, fitness, lifestyle, and so much more. So stick around and let's get into today's episode.
This is Radiant Voices Media.
Cannot get worse than this. I reckon I called my parents that Sunday night once again, and that was probably the first time they've ever heard me crying, like ever, you know? And like I was just thinking, what? Like you cannot get, like this has got to be it. Like there can't be anything left to give. And then I think on the Monday, things shifted, right? And on the Tuesday, things shifted. And on the Wednesday, things shifted. And things have just started to shift now where like I'm confident in my body again. Like for a long time, I couldn't even move my arms, right?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode. Today is part 2 of a two-parter. Of course, in part 1, James Trenerry joined me here in the studio, and we chatted about Platfrm, James's gym, and we chatted about strength training, Pilates, running, making sure that your training is a bit of a mixture of it all. We chatted about owning a gym, about the business side of things, and James shares a whole lot in that episode. In today's episode, James gets a little bit more down personal and vulnerable. We go through the vulnerability corner. We go through James and his purpose and his goal of owning the gym and helping people. And we just have kind of a good discussion around other things. So tune in to today's episode, the second part. And again, if you haven't listened to part 1, definitely go tune in there. And yeah, let's get into today's episode.
I was like, oh yeah, you're opening studios now. Like, James, what are you going to do? And Aaron was like, oh yeah, he's gonna have one. And I said, one, mate, I'm gonna have at least 5, right? At least 5, because I thought like one's just not enough, right? It's just not. It's not going to be enough for me. So you've got to cater to the people who are like, well, I just want one studio and I just want it to be my thing. Like I'm not like you. Like you do you, I'll do me. I want to be a part of what you're doing, but I don't want to do it to that level. So great, you know how I can help you do that, and I can make that thing pump for you, give you a nice healthy revenue stream, a nice bit of profit on top. If you want to step away from it, you probably are going to need 2 of them, because that's just by the nature of like things break down if you start earning so much revenue. If there's so many players on your team, you kind of need another one to share the load a little bit. But if that's what you want, I can help you get that, right? And I think that comes back down to just the problem solving of the nature of, I guess, entrepreneurship is I'm here to solve the problem. You know, one of the biggest things that kind of make me sad, I'm getting a bit sad now, is that I know that I'll never be able to help enough, right? That actually keeps me, you can see I'm getting emotional about it. It's a funny one. Like there'll be a time when I can't help anybody else, right? And I fucking love doing what I do, man. And it's a shame that you just can't help everybody. It's the world is too big, you know? But we can do what we can.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to like a lot of businesses forget to get good in something, right?
Yeah.
And then they chase a trend or they chase this
Yeah.
and that. So, I think it goes back, like it sounds like you've gotten good at a certain aspect and then you've opened another one, or then you've done this and that, right? And it's just a little bit of a disconnect, because it can also get to the point where somebody wants to have 5, 6, 7 locations or this and that, but then only one of them is successful or only one of them is doing things
Yeah.
at a good capacity,
Yeah.
and that's a very common mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your, I guess, recommendation or your advice to businesses that do want to expand, but before they get from 1 to 5 gyms, what are some parameters that they need to visit?
Now you got to nail the basics.
Yeah.
Like exactly what you just said. Get good at that thing.
Yeah.
Like find your niche.
Yeah.
Get good at it. You've got to get really good at your systems and your processes behind the scenes, right? Yes, you run a group fitness class, but what are all the behind the scenes stuff? Does the accounting does the accounting stack up? What's the process of, like, even honestly, how do people open the place and close the place? How do people make a transaction? What's the pipeline of the client journey? What happens if something breaks? What is the client journey from when they make an account, buy a pack? What do they get next? Like, how many touch points are there in there? What are the messages that you need to send out? There are so many things that happen behind the scenes that I dare say even your staff members probably don't know about, that you have to get right, right? But then what's going to happen is, once you open up a certain number of locations, like every time you add another naught to the revenue stream, that's going to break, right? You need to find another way to communicate something. We're going through this phase right now where we've gone from obviously 1 to 2. We've now got about 30 employees. We've got people who just teach runner weights, just teach reformer. Some teach both. We've got pantry, which is like the smoothies and the juices. We've got, 8-week strength blocks. There's already a lot going on. So we're at that point now. It's like, well, how much is too much communication within the team, right? Because these guys have to learn reformer stuff. These guys have to learn runner weight stuff. We've got events happening, right? So now we're getting to that groove of, okay, the team are asking for more. Just, can you give me what the first 6 months looks like? Yeah, we can definitely do that. But as a startup, and I would still classify us as a startup. We've only been around for 2 years. You've got to, once again, you've got to get that solid foundation right. You've got to understand who you are, what you do, why you do it. Like, that's the big one. Why are you getting out of bed? What are these people? What are the employees here for? We kind of have a rule that we don't hire people who aren't clients, right? But to get to that point, you've got to get so good at delivering that service that the people who come in for the service are attracted to the service, then to be able to teach the service. So consistency is a big thing. How you train people is a big thing. We are very big. We spend about 90% of our time on training and development, right? That's what we do. We don't have TVs and things like some of these other places. It's all, I need to teach you how to put a good workout together. I need to teach you how to put a good reformer class together. So a lot of that's in the, okay, so what is the learning and development process of a trainer? It's, I need to know the thing. Great, I know the thing after a month. I reckon I've nailed the thing. I figure out that I'm actually shit at it because I don't know anything. And then they're like, oh, I'm so good at this. It's so easy. No, I'm shit. Yeah. And then like we know that's going to happen. Yeah. So we have like a 12-month process for these guys. The first 3 months is, all right, you're great. You can say the words. You can do the thing. You think you're awesome. You find out you're shit. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, great. You're going to have a little breakdown. Yeah. Now let's build you back up, right? And now you can see that you've just opened the door. Yeah. There's so much that you don't know. Let's help you get to that point. So training and development processes, once again, that's really important to do. And then it's, making sure that the locations are right, making sure that the marketing's right. I think you do see a lot of places that, some places do grow too quickly. I think we can all have a look at kind of what happened to F45 there for a little while. But there was a lot of, you see a lot of stuff in the media and whatnot, but they had so many locations on the cards. And I don't know the actual story, but I believe that they floated onto the stock exchange to raise more capital. And then obviously COVID hit, and then their share price went down, and then they didn't have any money anymore. And they promised all this stuff to these people to open them. And that's a really important learning. And I think it's, just steady. It's once again another Simon Sinek thing about the infinite game. Play like you're playing forever, not like you're trying to win. Because if you play like you're trying to win, there's an end game. And also you're a loser if you don't win. Whereas, no, these are just bumps in the road. How do we navigate ourselves out of that? From there, it's like once you're ready to grow, you've got to talk to people who've done it. You know, you've got to be able to say, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know, you got to help me. I got to acknowledge where I don't know these things. The more you say to somebody, I don't know what I'm doing, and you present yourself in that vulnerable fashion, more people are likely to want to talk to you about it. But if you act like you know exactly what's going on all the time, then I don't believe people want to really engage with you all that much. So you've got to put your hand up, find yourself a coach, find yourself a mentor, find someone who's done it and done it well. Even better, find someone who's done it and had a shit time of it, but found the way through it. Okay, what were their learnings? You know, read books, get off Instagram. I would also say you've got to get, if you're a business owner who's looking to grow or scale or even just do this, right? You got to get your mind right. You got to get your mind right. You got to get your body right. You got to get, you've got to sleep. I went through a pretty shit time. It was probably 2018, 19, 2020 where I was not doing that, you know, and that was pretty detrimental. And a lot of growth has happened for me in the last 12 months. You know, I met someone who was able to help me bring back my authentic self, you know, and say words that I wasn't able to say in a previous life. And I'm getting emotional about it. But, you know, you've got to, in yourself as a business owner, you've got to be in this constant state of like reflection and rebound where you're going to take hits because you are responsible for everything. And you're celebrated for nothing. You know? And everything's your fault.
And
all the time.
I think a lot of people, you know, when they want to start something or when they want to become an entrepreneur, they have all of the ideas, they forget the things like sleep. They forget the things like focusing on your why and about you. You know, I think it's very common for there out in the social media space or this and that, you see all the time about the grind and you know you need to work all the time, you need to do this and that, but I think that can also be detrimental to your goals as well. And I think we forget about this and that, and we forget about ourselves basically, and that's quite important because at the end of the day, you know, if you crash and burn, then what you're working on is going to fall
also falls
with
apart
you. So
dramatically.
that's
so
very important, I think, and a lot of people when they first start forget that, and even along the way, you know, even a year down the road, they forget that, and they lose their why, and they lose their why they're doing this or
absolutely.
whatnot.
And I think it's really important as well as that, like, you've got to get yourself a really kick-ass support system. And it can't be work people, right? It's got to be outside of work people. Some of them can be work people. Like, I've got a great team of people around me, you know, an awesome GM, head of marketing, awesome manager, awesome head of training, some really kick-ass trainers who absolutely love it, you know, they fucking love it. They love it more than I do, which is, you couldn't ask for anything greater than that, right? And part of the deal is, you've got to spend time growing them too, right? Because they don't always come in with the skills and capabilities that you need. You've got to grow those skills and capabilities with them. And then it's about, well, you've got to get yourself a psychologist. You know, you've got to get yourself a mentor. You've got to, you know, I spend a lot of time talking to a mate of mine who is currently traveling around Australia, and we speak probably every second day. Right, because he's right into that personal development bit, and he'll tell me when I'm, you know, fucking shit up or living in a space of something that doesn't help. Right, so that's really important. And I guess I think it's also important to realize that it is a lot like. It is supposed to be fun, right? Business is supposed to be fun. Business is supposed to be fulfilling. It's a problem-solving thing. But it's also important to realize that you've got to be sacrificing. Like, sacrifice is going to have to be made if you want to do something tremendous in the world. Doesn't matter what that is. Doesn't matter if it's a business, if it's a relationship, if it's a marriage, if you're going to get a dog. running marathons. Something's got to give. You can't do it all. And it's also important then to remember, like, do not live beyond your means, and do not, if you have a win, obviously you've got to celebrate that win. But I think it's also really important to be like, just acknowledge it, but we can don't go too hard at the paint.
And it's important to be vulnerable, like you were saying. Like I think like you were saying, a lot of people forget that vulnerability. A lot of people, it's good to talk about your successes, but it's also good to talk about, the failures. And I think that's an interesting thing, and people want to talk to you about that, and people want to help. Like, I think when you're in the business space, or when you are trying to create something, it's very common for people to, act like they know it all, really. And I think that's a hard thing too, because it really puts up these walls, and then the people that you could be getting all of this great advice from is you're just missing all of that good advice, and you're missing all of those tools for your toolbox. That goes for anything in life. Me myself, for the marathons, like the last 2 years since I got a coach, I've improved exponentially. And that's because, I was like, well, I don't know it all. Getting that help, getting that advice, getting that mentorship is quite important. And, it could go for your personal life. It can go getting a psychologist. It goes in all aspects of life. And I think we forget that really a lot of the time.
And I think what I'm finding is the sooner the better, right? If you leave these types of things to later on in life, if you're a parent with kids, or if you're an older adult and you haven't practiced that vulnerability aspect early on, it's so much harder to flip the script as you get older. Obviously, because you're just now more ingrained into that way of thinking. It's an interesting one, because it's also really hard when you hear or see people in distress, right? And you just want to say, I can help, or I think I can help, or we can see what the problem is. But there's also a level of, and this is not my toolbox, but you can see it's like, I just need you to just accept where you're at, right? Like, it just say where you're at. Like, I can see that you're in trouble. Just use the words. But it's very hard. Like, once again, over the last 12 months, that's been a learning of mine. To be I was never not okay with it, but being really open and vulnerable and authentic with obviously particular types of situations, which has been really healthy. And then all you want to do once you get to that spot is like just talk to everybody about it. like you're going through some stuff. Like, let's talk about that. Because it is hard. Like, I like when people, like, no one's getting out of this thing alive, right? Do what you want to do. Say the thing, right? Do the thing. Say the thing. And it's never going to, I think, like, our worst case scenario is highly unlikely going to happen, right? It's just not. The amount of times you've thought, you're doing a marathon, I'm gonna fuck this up, or I'm gonna like have an injury or whatever, and then you end up getting a PB. But we do that to ourselves. I've gotten to the habit recently of, sitting with myself, and just, it's like pseudo meditation, but genuinely just letting thoughts float around like clouds a little bit, and just ask myself, is that real, or have I genuinely just made that up? And a lot of the time, it's you're making that up, right? It's good. Like, as I guess my skill or my superpower is creative thinking and problem solving. But then it's to the point where that that's not a positive thing you're thinking right now, or that's not a positive situation. Like, that's not helpful. Why are you doing that? Then that's important to separate, right? That's just you're making that up. That's now becoming a spiral. You got to like learn to shut that off. And I think that's an important skill. Like, a lot of people, could probably work with. It's especially, you know what? You got to blame social media sometimes, right? Let's say, for example, social media is like a 5-second friend, right? You see something every now and then about that particular person, then you make up a story about that particular person, and then like you see a post and whatever, and you think, oh, you'll think something about that, regardless of what the intention actually was. And then you get to the point where now you've got obviously stories on Instagram and TikTok, and you'll see that someone might be doing a run, or they're out with somebody else or whatever, and then you just get to the point of all these people are showcasing these amazing lives on here, right? What's wrong with me? Or I wish I had that. But then you actually get to the point of realizing, like, yeah, that could be legitimate for some people, but for others, I feel like I've got nothing else, so I'm going to put it all out there, and I hope someone acknowledges this, because I lack connection, right? But then if you're coming at it from a place of lack anyway, it could be also quite destructive when you're like sitting at home in bed scrolling and whatnot, and you're seeing all these people doing these amazing things or things you think are amazing, and then all you do is just wallow, and you get into like this spiral of, I'm not good enough. Why didn't you invite me to that? That person's life looks so much more fun than mine.
And you see 3% of somebody's life,
Oh,
not even that.
100%.
So it's,
Yeah.
This fear, like you have this fear of failure. You have this fear of comparing yourself to others because you're not living up to that, where you want to be. But again, you're seeing probably not even 3% of somebody's life. You're seeing a 10-second post of somebody's life, or a 60-second reel, and that's a compilation of all of their best aspects of the day, right?
Correct.
So it's an interesting thing, because you don't want to, like you're saying, you don't want to sit there and scroll, and then you don't want to be the other side of the things where you're posting to find that connection. But it's at the same time, like, social media is so interesting, because it's such a big part, and we kind of have to learn how to navigate it, because
Correct.
I don't think it's going anywhere. I mean,
Going
there's
away.
talks of TikTok deleting, but who knows?
Well,
But
now everyone's jumping on this other Chinese version.
yeah,
of it,
exactly.
Which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But you're right. You've got to just learn to navigate that, because it's not going away, and it's necessary. As a business owner, it's necessary for the business. You can't not have it, right? You get to the point of, okay, so in my mind, it's if it's as a founder, air quotes, you've got to be on there and showcasing what you do, because people do like to connect with that, right? They like to, who is the person behind this business, right? But then I could be putting up, anybody could put up all this, high value shit, which is just lies for social media, and then behind the scenes you're a scumbag, or whatever, because it's hard to. You could do that if you wanted to. You could play that game. I find that once again the humanizing aspect of social media is quite beneficial, because it means that people can connect with you. I was having this conversation not too long ago about just like, look at this engagement of things that you might be posting and whatnot, and we'll talk about some of the things that I've posted over time and more recently, and it's always the ones that show a real human aspect that get a lot of interest and engagement. And then I'm like, why is that? It's like, well, people don't really know you. They might know what you've done. They might have heard about you. They might see you around the place, but it's not many people just don't know who you are. So then you got this fine line of, how much do I share? Because I like to keep my private life private, right? That's kind of important, especially when it comes to like family or like new relationships and things like that. When it's like a new relationship, you've got to, like, I don't want that on social media, because I don't want that person to get unwanted attention or something like that. And then you put your family stuff on there anyway. So there's this, you got to do this dance of what's enough, what's not enough. What are you going to put on there? Is it going to be for education, right? I think for mine personally, it's like, well, what can I share that's helpful for people? And then it might be a little bit about me working out, or it might be, another day, we have a shower at my land outside. I posted that. I was like, look at this fucking thing being shared like 40 times. Yeah. Like, what do you expect, man? Yeah. Like, but that wasn't the point. It's like, the point is the message of finding fun, right? but yeah, from a, I guess coming back to the other one, from a mental health perspective, that can um, it can hinder, but it can also be very helpful. I think it's really cool when people do share their achievements. I think it's really cool when people do share their struggles. Um, I It's this fine line as well, like though probing people to share with you their things. That like there's not always something wrong. That's always another conversation I'm having more frequently. Is like there's not always something wrong. Like one of the other things I'm saying, like what else is in there for you, but another one I'm saying at the moment is like, tell me your wins today. Yep. How have you won today? Not like like what was your morning like, or like how you feeling today. It's like, tell me how you've won, right? Because that then puts you in a more positive mind space of, okay, there are like I've done a lot already today, right?
Yeah. And there's an art to it. Like, I think some people naturally, through experience, don't think of the positives, so it's
Mm-hmm.
important to phrase things like that
Yep.
because, if you tell me how your morning's been, somebody could tell you all of the things that went wrong. And
Yes.
that's just how people have, experienced life,
Correct.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's their experience, and that's fair. But
Mm-hmm.
there's an art of looking at the positives, and there's
Uh-huh.
an art, and that's just something that I think you need to work on, that a lot of people, it's a journey in itself.
100%.
So that's important there with itself.
Tell you what, that is exactly how I actually started in the fitness industry, believe it or not. In 2013, I did work experience at KX Pilates with Aaron. Aaron is a family friend. He's like my brother-in-law's best mate, right? So we'd known each other since we were 16. And I did work experience with them. I was doing my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. I was working corporate HR. And I remember vividly. And this probably was the change of my mindset of what what I would say was the next 4 or 5 years of rapid change and growth in my personal life. I was sitting at my desk in my corporate office, and I was just sending him a text message. Just said, "Hey mate, thanks for the last couple of weeks of work experience. I really like. It was really great to see how it all works. Blah blah blah." And then I thought to myself, "I'm just gonna just thanks. I'll see you later," kind of thing. And I thought, no, be polite and close with, if anything comes up in the future, I'd love to hear about it. As like, if any opportunities arise, let me know, right? Because at that time, I was like, oh, I don't really know if this is what I want to do. Like, am I really going to quit the corporate life, like pretty cushy, cruisy stuff at 28 to get into fitness? Anyway, no, I think that was an email. Sorry, it was an email, not a text. And then, like, within at least 5 seconds, it's like, ding, ding. And I pick it up. Aaron Smith, saw your email. Coffee Friday, 7 a.m. It's like, fuck no.
Yeah.
Like, no way.
No, yeah.
I don't want to. See you then.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, no, fuck it, man. You got to go. And from that point, I've really tried to, and I don't know what it was before that point. Maybe it was like maybe it's a whole lot of like I'm not good enough kind of stuff, or maybe it was a matter of that's just not for me, or I'm undeserving of that. I don't know what it was, but since that point, since that text message, that's one of those like those core memories, right? That is a fundamental change in who I am as an individual. After that text message, within I think it was 2 years, I had quit the corporate world. I had worked in fitness. I managed to run. I was like a master trainer at KX. I managed 3 studios. I had a PT business. I was a run coach. I ended up living in Bondi for 2 years. I moved back to Adelaide, opened 5 of the most successful KXs that there ever was at the time. Top 5 in the country, all of them. Sold them all. Doing this thing now with Platfrm, and it all just came down to that one thing, where that could have been a no. It could have been a no. I could have said, yeah, let me think about it, but it wasn't. It was I'll see you then. And we made it work. We figured it out, right? I had to take heaps of annual leave, whatever it was, and I had to work 60 hours a week, and, we made it work. There's so many times where just recently, like in October of last year, I was in the gym doing bench press, and I was just warming up, so I wasn't thinking anything of it, and I was fucking fit. Like I was on the path to like a 90-minute half marathon, right? I was like, and that for me is good, right? That for me is good. So I was just loving life. I was having a good time, and I dropped the barbell from full height, 80 kilos on my chest. I was on the ground for 15 minutes, couldn't breathe, ended up having to go to hospital, was bedridden for the next however many weeks. That was the week of my 40th birthday as well. Um, you know, and like after that, just hit after hit after hit. Like I got like pneumonia or something. Then a few personal life things, and then really had to have a look at how Platfrm was performing, and then I don't know, things kind of got better, but then they got worse, and then I got like COVID, and then I had planned a holiday, and I couldn't go to that anymore, and you know, and I remember sitting there. It was actually last Saturday night. I'd gone to this thing, and I come home, and I was just, and I just remember just saying like what is this? Like why have these last 3 months been so fucking shit for me? Like you gotta tell me. And this is like just me to the universe or like baby Jesus or something. I remember just sitting there. I was just uncontrollably crying and I just had enough, man. And I was just like, you gotta tell me, like, what is the point? And then things changed. And like, it's just a matter of like um, working through those rough periods of time. I think as a business owner or as just any person, you can't, like at the point where it is the absolute worst, you think it cannot get worse than this. I reckon I called my parents that Sunday night once again, and that was probably the first time they've ever heard me cry, like ever, you know? And like I was just thinking, what? Like it cannot get, like this has got to be it. Like there can't be anything left to give. And then I think on the Monday, things shifted, right? And on the Tuesday, things shifted. And on the Wednesday, things shifted. And things have just started to shift now where like I'm confident in my body again. Like for a long time, I couldn't even move my arms, right? Now I'm back on like 117 kilo bench press. And that was way more than I was doing before. I'm back on my running journey. I think we're seeing this really positive trend after Christmas, like people getting back into fitness. I have booked in another holiday. I am going to see my parents. I've got a new rental property, which is fully furnished in this perfect location. Things are kind of going back up there, and they're going to be better than they were before. And I know that to be true because what was happening in this little section was like a shedding, a shedding of all the build up and the gunk and the emotional blocks and the psychological blocks, and then what's going to come next. It cannot, it can only be better. It can only be better than that. And I have to believe that no matter what happens in this next 6, 12, 18 months, it is way better than it was before. And I think, whether you want to look at it through the lens of a business owner or someone on the fitness journey or just, whoever you are and whatever you're doing, I think it's, shit's gonna fucking happen, right? It's gonna, and you've got to build. And this is honestly a raised level upon which, like, Platfrm is to get to that point where, like, I've done some hard things now, like, and now it's just I'm well equipped, I'm more resilient, I'm more focused, I'm more well rested, I'm around the right people, it's all in there for me. So.
Yeah, you have to get vulnerable, and you
do.
have to, sometimes it takes those hard days, and you can dwell on those days, or you can, turn things around and look at things a bit differently. We have something on the podcast called the Vulnerability Corner. I have 1 to 5 questions out in front of me. I'm gonna get you to pick a number 1 through 5, and let's get into it and get a bit more vulnerable. 3. So number 3 is, what is a personal quality of which you're most ashamed of, and why? Have a think.
A personal quality I'm most ashamed of. Ashamed of.
It's difficult because, we don't want to.
No, I've got it.
Yeah.
I can easily have my arm twisted to do things which I know
Okay.
are not positive or not conducive to the goals I want. And it's like, and that could, like, I think that comes from, having such, I try to be a high performer as much as I can. Okay. I try to do that. I try to have a high standard. I try to be good, do good, say good. And that can also be a lot sometimes. And then sometimes, like, I just need a moment, because it is it's a muscle, right? You got to flex your, because who wouldn't rather just lie on the ground and do nothing sometimes, right? It's hard to do hard things, but it's also important to do hard things. It changes. There's actually a Herberman Lab podcast that talks about how it changes your brain, right? So that's there, but it's also sometimes, draining and whatnot. And sometimes you see people, or you're around people who aren't that way inclined, and you're like, oh, I look at you and think you're having a great time, If you ask me, I'm going to want to have a great time too, right? And it's not going to be positive. And that, after the fact, like, even it could be like, I'm in my mind talking about, like, you go out to Bank Street or something, or you go out and you spend too long at East End Cellars or whatever it is, right? But then it's also just other things like the same behaviors can be like binge eating, or whatever it is, or like whatever. That's probably a part of me that I'm still working on, the ability to really put my foot down and say, no, yep, that's not in it for me. And why is it in there? Is it because you're trying too hard on this side of the spectrum? You don't let yourself have a moment. Is it that, I don't know, but that's those, when it gets to the, maybe just one more beer kind of thing, like, maybe just like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all do it, don't we?
Oh,
Like,
for sure. And I think that's something like, that, like, after the fact, you feel a bit down about it. You feel a bit guilty about it. And it's not about, oh, you get over it. It's like, no. This is deeply against my values, right? This is not a matter of just like, oh, you had a big night, or you ate too much, like, pizza or whatever the thing is. So no, like, I understand why you're trying to be nice, but also understand that I feel like I've done something that's deeply against who I am and what I stand for. That's just not a matter of get over it. That's a fracture or a splinter in your personality, or your systems of belief. So, maybe it's about not being so hard on myself, or maybe it's about not being in those situations, or maybe it's about I don't know. But those types of things, like, you feel bad about them. What else? Oh, that's a really hard question, man, because you don't want to.
because you don't want to. I think it's difficult because you don't want to dwell on these negatives, right? But I think at the same time, reflection is quite key,
Oh,
and
for
we
sure.
can't reflect unless we realize what needs to be discussed and what needs to be reflected upon. And that goes back to what you were just saying, with the quality. I think a lot of the times we want to reflect, or we lack these reflection skills, and then we just kind of dwell on all of these things, and that's not important, because then it just goes back into that fear, and this fear of failure, and it
Mm,
spirals out of control. And
mm,
um, it's not until we kind of circle back and like, okay, well, this is why I do something. How am I going to get out of it?
yeah,
That's when things kind of improve, I think. And it's an art in itself. And it's like, where do you start? and
yeah,
and I don't have the answer to that, and
yeah,
I don't know that anybody
yeah,
does. I think it's just something that you have to find
yeah,
upon yourself,
yeah,
really.
yeah. I think it's funny, like when you you could be so superficial with an answer like that. What do
Mm,
you feel ashamed about? Oh, I slept until
yeah.
like 7 a.m. this morning. It's like,
Yeah.
but that's not enough, you know.
Mm.
If you're gonna ask, that is a really good question. What's question 5? Do you mind asking?
Advice, yeah. Question 5 is question 5 is, what do you like most about yourself, and what do you dislike about yourself?
Oh man, did you write these?
I did.
Oh God,
Yeah.
what do I like about myself? I like that my um I like it's sometimes a pain in the ass sometimes, but I like that my brain doesn't work the same as a lot of other people's. Sometimes I find it really hard to communicate with people. Sometimes I find it really hard to focus and concentrate. This is, I'm sure everybody's got this now, but I really am thankful for the fact that um yeah, the wiring I got is a combination of my mum and my dad. My dad is a doctor of organic chemistry, and my mum is all like personality and care, right? And I'm really thankful that I got the combination of both those things. It is hard sometimes because you think about the end before you think about the start, and you can think about the middle and the end at the same time. If you're telling a story, you think about everything from every possible angle, and then you kind of get trapped. But it's also really handy for creative problem solving, and it's really handy for understanding like the journey of things. Like the answer to the problem before someone's asked the question. Sometimes, um, I I I used to find it really like yeah. I just think it's I'm very thankful for that. Um, I'm very thankful for the fact that um, I'm not sure if you're supposed to. I know I care a lot, right? I know I care a lot. I know um, it's nice to know that you things it's nice to know that things have an emotional impact on you. That's a nice, like they're not always nice, but it's nice to know. Like yeah, that's nice. What do I dislike about myself? Or something I can be incredibly inconsistent. I can be incredibly lazy, right? It's either 100% or zero, right? Um, I can I can be impatient, and that's only because I think once again coming back to that, my brain works about 1,000 kilometers an hour, right? It's like, hurry up. I know what you're going to say anyway, so let me say it, right? But that's not nice. Um, I find I'm pretty self-critical for sure. Um, I've definitely got a lot of um, body image issues for sure. I'm not sure where that came from. Um, and then just the inherent stuff of like, I don't think I'm smart enough. I don't think I'm all that other stuff that comes with that. But then I'm also like, somewhere's like, no, you are like, why do you do that? So that's something I dislike. Um, but it's also something I do like. The fact that like I dislike the places that I go to, but I like this like the reparenting of the child almost within you to say, you know, how would you talk to a friend? So that's really important. I like that I'm able to love. I like that I've had love in my life. I like that I've experienced love to the point of it being a knowing. Yeah, very thankful for that. I also like the fact that, you know, I like the fact that I want to do hard things. I like the fact that I want to solve people's problems. You know, if I reflect on like the good things, those are things that I like. Um, yeah, those are really good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's serious. I like the fact that you can say you've done it. I like the fact that I can say when I've done a good job.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
that's nice,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to things aren't good enough or whatever. Um, I like the fact that I've developed a set of particular skills. That sounds like, who was that? That was like Liam Neeson. Taken. No, I like the fact that I've taken the time to develop a set of skills that I can help a particular set of people.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
I like the fact that I've been around for 40 years and I'm still learning shit.
Yeah.
You know, that's fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like Benjamin Button. It just seems to be, like, I don't know what it is, but I seem to be getting more energized, more youthful,
Okay.
and healthier
Mm.
the older I get. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a funny thing.
It is, isn't it?
How old are you?
29.
You're 29.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I started fitness when I was 28.
Okay.
Before that, I was in corporate.
Yeah.
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 So when did you move to Australia?
6 years ago now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And what brought you here?
Yeah. Masters. Finished
perfect.
that. Yeah.
Yep. In what?
Yeah. And then I stayed physio. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's so good, man.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. So yeah, I still plenty to go. Like I I get a lot of grief from my team usually about like my age. But I and sometimes I give myself like, you should be one of those kind of stories. You should be like, why don't you have a wife and kids by now? So I can tell you right now, if I had a baby now, it would not work in what I'm trying to do, right? And maybe it just hasn't been the right person, the right partner. Maybe I haven't been the right person, you know? Definitely, you can get hung up on that, but that doesn't serve you. But I know that in terms of that, I'm definitely, once again, fitter, stronger, and healthier than I've ever been, which is, I'm going to say, it's a testament to Platfrm. Like, it just works, man. It just works. I wish, I want people to experience this in terms of fitness thing, in terms of community thing, because it just fucking works. It doesn't make you feel like shit. You never run down. You work at your own potential. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm conscious of the fact that we've gone over.
Nah,
But we can keep talking if you want.
I was just gonna say, where can people find you? Where can people find you? Where can people follow you? Plug all of that in.
Yeah, well, my personal Instagram
Yeah.
is just at James Trenerry.
Yeah.
It's just my James GV Trenerry on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Platfrm is just at Build a Better.
Yeah.
Platfrm, that's the main page.
Yeah.
And then you've got Platfrm Myland, which is the second page.
Yeah.
Yeah, if people ever want to reach out and have a chat, just send me a DM.
Yeah.
You know, big on calendar invites. I said to you, like, put in the calendar. It's got to be in there. Yeah, I think that's where they can find me. They can find me at the gym.
Yeah.
They can find me having a coffee.
Cool. Easy as that.
If they want.
Yeah.
It's funny, right?
Yeah.
When you sent me this invite, I was like, yeah, people want to talk to me. Yeah. No, genuinely, this is, I really wanted to I know that, like, if we had this chat when you first invited me to come on, it would have been a very different conversation, I think.
Yeah.
So thank you for the invite.
That's all right.
Thank you for having me in here.
Yeah.
It's been exciting to see this.
Yeah.
This is cool. Maybe I'll come in here.
Thank
I always
you.
wanted to do a podcast.
Why not?
Business and bodies.
Why not?
The what was it called? The Pilates and parties.
Yeah.
Something like
Hey,
that.
you can name it anything you want, really.
This is cool, man. This is great. And I think you're doing good stuff.
Oh, thank you.
I reckon, no, definitely, man. Anybody who's got the time to sit down and talk to people, hear about their stories, share some insights, I think you're doing good. I think that's just really nice for you to do this.
Well, I thank you for coming on, because I think the goal of this podcast
Mm.
is to spark conversation,
Uh-huh.
right? And that's what I find interesting. I
Uh-huh.
find a lot of other people think that's interesting, and I think you have to be open with talking to somebody whom you've just met day one, you
Mhm.
know, in a lobby or whatnot. And it takes a certain person to be able to do that.
Mm.
So thank you for coming on, because I think the goal of this podcast and the goal that it's always been is to, spark conversation, but also to appeal to a wider audience and to
Mm.
educate a wider audience. You know,
Mhm.
I think on this podcast, I would have anybody and anybody on this, and it doesn't matter what avenue that they come from,
Mhm.
because you can talk to about anything really.
Mhm.
So, thank you for coming on. Yeah,
It's all right.
it's been great.
Anytime,
And
man. Sure,
yeah,
like usually it's this type of thing. It's like, no, I only want to hear about this.
Mm,
I only want to hear about the business stuff. I only want to hear about reformers. I only
Yeah.
want to hear about their gyms.
yeah,
And that can get pretty tiring.
Mm.
Like, tell me your story. It's like,
Yeah.
fuck, I feel like I've done that.
yeah,
now, right? Like, come on.
yeah.
So anyway, I'll shake
Yes,
your hand.
yes.
Thanks so much, man. I really
That's
appreciate
all right.
it.
Yeah. Alrighty, everybody, and that is it for today's episode. Be sure to head to the show notes. You can find Platfrm, you can find James, you can find all of the links there. I want to thank James again for coming on the podcast. This was an amazing conversation, and definitely some good things that you all can get out of listening to this episode and part one. I will talk to you all in the next episode, and have a wonderful week.